I'm Battalion Chief Bailey Martin. Thank you for joining us again today. We're here talking with another one of our firefighters. Today we have Firefighter Brianna Robinson with us today. And this is just more of our series of just getting to know some of our employees. Want to find out more about where they're from, how they got into the fire department, and also just a little bit more about who our people are and what interests them about the fire service. So, Brianna, thank you for joining me today. We'll just go ahead and get started. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Okay. I'm originally from Smithfield, Virginia. That's in the Tidewater area. So I grew up in Smithfield, graduated from Smithfield High School. I lived most of my younger time in Smithfield. I also moved over to Newport News for a couple of years. But primarily 18 and below, I was in the Tidewater area.
Okay. So what was life like for you growing up? Do you have brothers and sisters? What's your family life?
Yes,
like?
I am one of four. So we have a pretty big family. Growing up, I love sports. I played basketball. I ran track. I'm the youngest, so I'm the baby. But somehow I ended up taking on the role as the older sibling. Mm-hmm. My older siblings always came to me with pretty much everything, any concern, any help, even though I was the baby. But yeah.
Do you So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have two brothers, one sister.
Two brothers and a sister. Okay. So you said you played basketball and ran track. So what position did you play in basketball?
In basketball, I played small forward in high school. When I went to college, I played in undergraduate school, and I ended up having to play a guard position. So have any sports fans to go from a post player to a guard, it's a pretty hard transition. Mm-hmm. But I was a smaller player in college compared to what I was in high school as far as height and weight. So I had to transition in those positions.
That's interesting because I just always thought of you as a point guard, really. Since we have played a little bit, I just thought maybe you were just a natural point guard.
Nope.
And I had the same kind of thing, but back and forth. Like I pretty much was like a utility player in basketball. Like I grew up playing mostly guard because I'm not that tall.
Yeah.
But then when I was in high school, the tallest starter was 6'2", so I ended up playing center most of the time, like defensively, so I'm guarding guys 6'6", 6'8".
Yeah.
So it's hard to switch back to guard once you're doing that. But,
right. But it was pretty cool because even though I transitioned from a post player to a guard in college, I still have the record for most rebounds in a game at my university.
That's pretty cool. Where did you go to school?
Methodist University in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of them. And then, so you said you ran track also. What did you do in track?
I did a couple of short distance, like 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash. I was a part of some of the relays, and I did a couple of field events, too.
Any specialties in the field events?
Not really. I just did it to get our team extra points, really. I wasn't really interested in the field events, but if we give our team extra points, I just hopped on it.
I enjoy it. I ran track also. I pole vaulted, which I really did enjoy and was pretty good at, but then that I often got thrown in the high jump, long jump, triple jump, even though I didn't really know what I was doing, just to try and, like you say, grab a few points here and there. So, well, cool. So you mentioned you went to college. Did you graduate from Methodist?
Yes.
What was your degree in?
My degree was in business administration, and I had a concentration in sport management, and I minored in accounting.
Okay. All right. So.
Which I hate now. I would never do it.
Well, that's a good skill to have. It's definitely a transferable skill, and accounting and business degree can be applied in a lot of different ways. So what did you, going through college, sounds like maybe, were you looking to maybe be an agent, or what was your kind of thought process of where you might end up career-wise?
Honestly, I went into doing business as my major because you can do administration, management, marketing. It's a lot of different fields you can, work within business. So I said, okay, that's good. But I have a huge interest in sports. So my goal was to do something within sports business, whether it's commentating, owning a gym, something within sports business was my goal when I was in undergrad. That's where my focus was.
So when you got out of school, did you find anything in that field? What was your first job out of college?
My first job out of college was a photographer.
Okay.
Right, yeah. I came home, I moved back to Virginia, and I was like, I just have to find a job, So it was a photographer, but they liked the business side and knew I had some, business experience in teaching, so I was a manager at a photography studio.
Okay, so what, like doing like portraits and stuff,
Doing,
or
yeah.
weddings, or
Just
what
doing
type?
pretty much like family portraits.
Mhm.
So they would come in, and I pretty much did I did do the photos, but it was more so managerial side than photography.
Scheduling.
Yeah, scheduling and payroll, stuff like that.
Okay.
So I did that for about 6 months, and I said, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. So I actually started working for a gym. So that kind of went in line with my degree.
Okay. Like just like a fitness gym, like a Gold's or some American Family, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's American Family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so what led you? Kind of what led you to being in the fire service? Because it sounds like you were kind of far away from being in the fire service at that point. And how long did it take you to get there, I guess?
Yeah, I was totally far away from the fire service. I knew growing up, even when I was younger, I was always, somebody had a boo-boo or injured themselves, they would come to me and I would fix it. Like I said, with my siblings, if they had a problem, I would take care of it. So I knew I had that in me to service people and to make a difference. And I know everybody says, I want to make a difference in the world, but there's so many different things you can do to make a difference. But I knew that the avenue I wanted to make a difference in the world was by servicing others, by helping people. So I knew that in my younger years, but once I graduated from high school, it's go to college, get a degree. And I had no idea what I wanted to do at that point. So I said business.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. I'm 18, fresh out of high school. I had no idea exactly what I wanted to do. I like sports, so.
Yeah, I think it sounds like that's a path a lot of us have traveled. That was my path as well. I really didn't have an idea going into school what I wanted to do. Got a degree, ended up doing something totally different than my degree right out of college, and then knew quickly that wasn't going to be it for me. So I, started looking around, and someone suggested, my dad actually suggested the fire service, and here I am. So.
Yep.
So how did you, what made that connection for you? How'd you, did you have a friend in the fire service, or did you look on your own, or how'd you find out, how'd you end up in Richmond?
So at the gym, at American Family Fitness, we have a lot of firefighters, police officers that come in there and work out. And I would talk to everybody in the gym, about their memberships, or just have general conversation. And I was talking to a guy, like, I need something different. Like, I'm feeding the passion of sports here, but I know what my true passion is. So we were just having a conversation. He was actually a firefighter in Henrico. So he was like, Bree, have you ever considered joining the fire department? And I was like, you know what, it's funny, because I think back to going to the fairs and stuff and festivals as a kid, and I can remember I wasn't the kid that wanted to go to the face painting table or go ride the pony. I always wanted to go take the pictures with the police officers or do the dressing drill with the firefighters, but I never saw anybody like me. So I never considered that as an option. I knew it always intrigued me, but I didn't think it was for me. So he mentioned it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look into it. He said, I think you'll be great. I think you'll be great. So I started looking into it, started researching the requirements.
Did he look like you? Was he a person of color, or was he
No, he was a middle-aged white guy. So he didn't look like me, but he brought it back to my attention, and I'm like, I'm gonna look into it. He was like, please look into it. Come to Henrico. So I started looking into it, started researching it, started finding out more about it. And then at the beginning, I didn't know that firefighters were also EMTs or paramedics, or whatever level you are. So I was like, okay, this is sounding. I started getting that tingly feeling inside of me, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to look into it. So then I ended up looking up Richmond because I had just moved to Richmond. I like the city. I like the dynamic, the culture, and just so happened Richmond had just opened up the application, and I applied.
And so did you get on pretty quickly then once you applied here, or
once I
did you have to wait?
Yeah, I had to wait. My initial application was in April. I didn't hear back for maybe a couple. I think maybe it's been a couple of years now, but I know the entire process took a year from application to academy.
Yeah.
And it was probably like a month between each part of the recruitment process.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have to try as government agencies try to do better, especially if we're trying to recruit the best people in the fire service, is try and speed up that process. Because, I don't know if you were in the first class, you might have been the second class on your list, but that process does take a while. And, for me, it was almost from when I applied to when I started was almost 3 years,
Wow.
So, because I was the last class on last class on my 2-year list.
Okay.
And then you have that front end part that takes a while. So.
Right. Yeah. Luckily, I was in the first wave of the entire initial written test applicants and all of that. So, yeah, it was about a year from application to start of the academy.
So you came into the fire service, no experience other than just like what you said, just what someone had told you and the fair.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your expectations coming in of like, what's this going to be like? Or especially you mentioned like, you didn't know that if it was for you. I don't know if you meant more of because you're a person of color or because you're a woman, but certainly either one of those would, maybe might have some reservations going in, but
yeah,
and also just a new career in general.
Yeah, all of that because the woman, me being black, it was just I didn't know what to expect initially.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if it was for me specifically being a black woman. Like I said, growing up, I didn't see it. Even at that point, at 27 years old, when I applied in 2017, whatever it was, I knew there were women firefighters, but I still had never seen one before.
Mm.
So I had my reservations with it, but from that conversation that me and that gentleman had and the feeling that I got, I knew it was something that I needed to pursue. I come from a family where there are no firefighters, no police officers, none of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that I have a family history of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not originally from Richmond, so I didn't have a lot of networking opportunities to speak to people to give me, these are things to expect or these are things to do. I didn't have any ends on that besides this guy that I met at the gym that works for Henrico.
So how was CPAT for you then? You're obviously an athlete. How was that difficult? Did you go to a lot of the mentoring sessions or?
Yes,
how was
every
that?
mentoring session that was available that I could go to, I went to. And when I went to the CPAT, it was pretty encouraging because I saw Captain Potter.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, we got a force here somewhere. So that was encouraging to see that. So, I was encouraged by that. And I kind of, once I saw her doing so, because she was actually doing, the first time I went to the mentoring session, she did it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. But I had no clue what I was getting myself into.
Right.
I didn't know what the CPAT was. So they said, come to the sessions, you can train, get feedback. So I went and I would practice certain things and I would figure out techniques. Being athletic definitely worked in my favor because I was able to just use my athletic nature to get through a lot of the things. But some things you really need to have a technique to do. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the fittest. None of that matters, honestly, with some of the things we have to do on the job. You have to know the technique. So when I went to the CPAT, and what helped me with the CPAT was more so learning the technique and believing in myself.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you made it through that. So going into the academy, how was your academy experience? What was that like for you? Like I said, you didn't have a lot of experience, but obviously you're in a group with a bunch of people. You said you probably didn't know anybody since you're not from around here. So
yeah. So
what was that like for you?
Going into the academy the first day, I was scared to death, of course. I didn't know who was going to be in the academy class. Of course, they don't tell you. I'm not from here, even if I did know a name or two. So, I walked into the classroom, and I was the only person like me in my classroom. In my class, I wasn't the only person of color, but I was the only woman in my class of 24. So,
how was that? 24, right?
24. I think we had in our wave we had 1,500 applicants, and they were hiring for 24, and I was the only woman of the 24 recruits.
Mm-hmm. So how was your academy experience overall? Did that go well for you?
It was great. Yeah, I had a great academy experience.
That's good.
It was great. Coming into it, once I realized that I didn't want to separate myself from the guys.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to do that. I wanted it to be a family and for them to understand I don't want you to feel weird about anything. I don't want you to do anything different. I don't want you to go out of your way and do anything differently for me that you would do for him. You know, we're here for the same reason. We had to do the same things to get to this point. So I trust you. You trust me. We're all Richmond firefighters.
So how was the transition? Obviously, you're exposed to a lot of new things, right? EMT, just firefighting in general, turnout gear, you know, the whole thing. What was that like for you? You know, I know you said you were scared going in, but after you'd been there for a little bit, was it still that, I don't know if I can do this, or was it like some sort of recognition that, like, I found my thing kind of feeling?
Yeah, initially, you know, once you get over those nerves of being in an academy and having that structure and all of that, you kind of settle down. So once I got to that point of settling down and getting my groove going, I realized I'm going to be great. I'm going to be great.
That's
so,
awesome.
You know, transitioning from never having any experience and not knowing much about the fire service, it was, as long as you have a desire to do the job and you're willing to learn, the sky's the limit. So I would put in extra time on things that I had no clue about, like throwing a ladder. You know, you have to have technique for something like that.
Yeah.
Or coupling a hose line. If you never touched a hose line, it's a foreign concept. So certain things like that in the academy, I would spend extra time to make sure I had it down pat. But I did get that feeling like this is for me, and I'm going to be great.
It was just I also hadn't really had any fire experience, so for me it was, I think EMT was the hardest part for me, because that was, you know, foreign. It's right at the beginning, and you know, it's a lot of pressure to make sure you get through that.
Yeah.
But I felt like once I got through EMT, then it was like I could really start to settle in and feel like this is, like, I'm so glad that I'm here and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, kind of thing. So I'm glad you had a good experience with that. So out of the academy, you go to 11?
Yes.
Right? So you've been there since you've been out, which is one of our busiest houses. So what's that experience been like? Making the transition, now you're leaving the academy, now you're actually going in the firehouse, doing the job.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
So by this point, of course, you've made connections and relationships while in the academy, with people in the academy, also people out in the field. So you're starting to hear stories, horror stories, good stories, what to expect, what not to do, first day, things that you should do, shouldn't do. So knowing that I was graduating and having to report to Station 11, you get that initial first day of the academy feeling again, like, all right, here we go, you know. So it was a little nerve-wracking at first. You don't know what to expect. You have your training, you have your knowledge, you got your gear, you're ready to go, but you just never...
No experience.
Yeah. You know, we did our drills in the burn building with fires and in a controlled environment, but it's totally different being in a home that isn't controlled.
So how long did it take you to get your first fire?
It took, I think, maybe 3 to 4 months. Yeah, it took.
That's rough.
Yeah.
You know, because it's that, like you said, that anticipation, like, you know.
Yeah, luckily I had a couple of car fires, so I had some time to get a chance to work with the nozzle, let my crew see how it worked, things like that. But my actual first structure fire, I think it took about maybe 3 months.
But in that time, you're also getting exposed to the whole other side, right? Because you guys run a lot of EMS calls.
Yes.
And just a lot of calls in general, just by where you are, you go to a lot of other stuff. So,
yes.
How was the crew? Like, did you feel welcome there, or did you, what was that like for you? You know, I know you said you heard a lot of stories going in, so you probably didn't know what to expect. So
yeah, going into it, heard a lot of stories, and then going to 11, being one of the busiest houses, you're like, you're not going to sleep all night, you know, this and that. I got into the station, and it was the warmest welcome. The guys I came in under, Lieutenant Rouse, Lieutenant Trey Kinney, Firefighter Braswell, Firefighter Rowley, those guys were, it was honestly, I couldn't they were the best crew to come in under, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
They were very welcoming. They're all very knowledgeable. So we would go out and train every day. They didn't withhold any information from me. If it's something they thought I could use or wanted me to know, they were like open books.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as far as tactical approach. And then in the house, they didn't make me feel separate. They didn't make me feel different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you go into a situation with firefighters, a lot of guys, it's, you know, certain things they may not want to say because the lady is in the room.
Right.
Or, you know, but they weren't like that at all.
That's good.
So they made the transition from academy to coming out a breeze.
And I think, you know, knowing kind of how that crew operated, like you said, you know, that crew had a passion for the job and doing it correctly. Even just 11 in general, with, you know, I think you probably came in when Shofel was still there. So.
He had just left.
Oh, he had just left.
He had just left, yeah.
But his legacy was probably still
there,
imprinted.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's one of, you know, as an officer, I think that's one of the best things that you can give a new firefighter is just your knowledge. You know, get out, train, and share things with them, because it is easy to forget once you've been in a while that someone coming in doesn't have your point of reference, and to, you know, expose them to the different elements of the job and teach them, even if you aren't the officer, just as a, you know, a senior firefighter, I think is really valuable and really sets the tone for that new firefighter and how they are going to grow and develop. You know, you see sometimes where maybe they, you know, firefighters go to a station where it's an older crew or a crew that just doesn't train as much, and they suffer a little bit in the beginning because they aren't exposed. They don't get to continue their, you know, to develop their skills, you know, where in the academy you're learning and you're doing, you kind of sometimes have that expectation that that's going to continue in the firehouse, and good companies it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So it sounds like you were fortunate to go into a good situation when you first came out. So.
Yeah, between all those guys, you have the person that'll teach you the importance of taking care of your house and all of that, to the importance of making sure your hose bed is how it should be, tight and right, so that way when you go to pull the line, you'll be good. So everybody on that crew contributed in a different way, but it made so that our team, me coming in, our team, they didn't skip a beat. They brought me up to their speed, and it was my first year was great. It was great. And,
you know, from a team perspective, I think, you know, anytime you know you're getting a recruit, that's kind of your hope. It's just give me someone that's, you know, eager to learn and a hard worker, and everything will be fine. You know, have a good attitude, you know, and it sounds like, you know, it was a good situation for all of you. So, but knowing that you came into the fire service blind, so to speak, you know, you didn't know much about the job and everything, but then now you also have to deal with the lifestyle part of it. You know, it's a whole different schedule. How was that transition for you? How was it, you know, was it hard to go to those 24-hour shifts, or good, or how does that work for you?
Initially it was hard. It's a change. You know, you're going working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, to having 10 days a month, and you're at work 24 hours, and then you're at 11, so you're up mostly at night. You're
really working for most of those 24 hours.
Yes. So my sleep schedule was so off for a while. My daughter, she was learning about animals in school, and she was talking about nocturnal animals. And she was like, I think you might be nocturnal because you sleep a lot during the day and you're up all night. So it's funny that she made that reference, but initially that's how it was. I had to get my body adjusted to figuring out how to change home as far as sleeping compared, you know, when it came to my days at work, because initially my sleep schedule was thrown off and I was really groggy during the day, and, you know, so that was the hardest adjustment, that rebalancing my time clock. That was the hardest adjustment. My family at home, they were very supportive of the transition. We worked it out. Of course, initially it's different, so it was an adjustment.
How old's your daughter?
She's 8.
She's 8.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate, you know, my daughter was only like 18 months, you know, when I came in, so she really didn't have to, you know, there was a little bit of an adjustment, but really that's, you know, her and my daughters after her, that's really all they knew. So it's just kind of, that's how things are. But, you know, she's old enough that probably, that was an adjustment, used to having you there every day, and now you're gone sometimes. And then, like
Yeah.
you said, when you are there, you may not be, you're a little more tired than you
Yeah.
usually are, or
Right.
sleeping and things. So
Yeah, I mean, it's still sometimes when she was like, I don't know if I want you to be a firefighter anymore, But then she she understands. But we still have some rough days where she, makes the comments because it is an adjustment. Sometimes it is hard. But as time goes on, she has adjusted, and my entire family has adjusted. So it's gotten a lot better. But the initial first couple of months, it was a transition.
And your partner, so how was that for her? Was it a similar kind of path for her as well?
Yeah.
I mean, having to maybe pick up in some areas that normally she wouldn't, or?
Yes, initially it was a shock for her too, because she had to pick up in certain areas from the beginning. Me being more tired than usual, so putting my daughter on the bus. As soon as I got home in the morning, I was ready to take a nap. And having to get her off the bus, things like that. But she was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. Her job allowed her to work from home, so our schedules kind of matched that way. So if she knew this is your shift day, I'll work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked out well for us.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a kind of a shift in how you look at things, because now once you have that kind of schedule, everything has to kind of revolve around that. And
Yes.
I'm sure, for me it was, and I'm sure for everyone it's an adjustment to make. But So now that you've been here for a little while, I know you said you had some reservations about, not knowing that there were people like you in the fire service, but, now, you're a black woman, you're also gay, openly gay. How has the department been? How has that gone? Have you felt like it's even been an issue, or does it feel like, tell me how that's been for you?
Yes, so far, it hasn't been a present, obvious issue. I've been fortunate enough to be around, the group of guys I've been around, as far as my crew, and then most of the people I come in contact with, it really hasn't presented an issue. I think the fire service is a career where there is a deep culture and tradition, but as time has gone, it's the 20th century, a lot of things are changed. And I think the fire service has come to the understanding that it's evolving just like the world is. So the doors to different types of people, gender, sexualities, ethnicity, nationalities, those doors have to be open. Mm-hmm. And they have to be open and welcoming. So I think everything that I have experienced has been warm.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in certain situations where me being a woman, it's not an obvious, blatant, this is, separation. But like I said, it's in the culture, so it's going to be times where it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, especially if I run into somebody that may not know me. Mm-hmm. Everybody at my station knows me. Everybody in my battalion knows me. But if I go to a different station, a different battalion, a different shift, they may not know. I may not have came in contact with them before, so they may initially, have that moment of, is she going to be able to back me up? Is she, is she capable? Mm-hmm. And it happens. And that's just honest. It happens.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, like I said before, we're all Richmond firefighters. And I think over time, even in my past 3.5 years of being here, I've seen, the change, and I've seen certain things change in certain personalities and moods, and maybe outlooks change on things, especially women being in the fire service.
Yeah, and I mean, as an organization, I think we're fortunate that we are more progressive in terms
Right.
of how diverse we are, but but there's also that element of inclusion. Like you can hire and be diverse, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're inclusive and that
Right.
everyone is treated fairly, and that you've changed the culture, like you were saying, that there's still, because the fire service as a whole is still largely a white male profession.
Right.
And with that comes certain, I think, stereotypes about what, if you don't fit into that, what you're capable of or what you're
Right.
not capable of. So, and sometimes I think the only way to dispel that or to change that is to have people that don't fit into those categories that are successful.
Yeah.
You know, they come in and can show you, hey, yeah, I can do this job, and you know, I'm sure, you know, even though we've never really worked together, your reputation is certainly one that you're a hard worker, you're capable, and so, you know, ultimately you're judged on your body of work and your attitudes and how you conduct yourself daily, not on who you are, you know, in terms of any demographic category in particular. So I'm glad that you've had a good experience, but you know, I'm glad that you've found our organization too, because you know, having people like you contribute, I think, helps move that bar forward.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I said. I initially, like I said, over the past few years, I think because of, you know, who we've hired and the change that we've had, some of the changes that we've had, that culture is that traditional culture is starting to dim down a little more, which I think is great. Like I said, it's times where, especially people that don't know me, you know, it may be a little awkward at first, or, you know, I don't know, we'll see as the day goes, but it happens.
And I think that's some of that is just natural anyway.
Right,
with anyone, you know,
Yeah.
anytime you come across a firefighter that you don't know, then it's kind of like, you know, what's this person about? You know, what are they, you know, what type of firefighter are they, or what are they capable of? I think there's a little bit of that anytime, but there certainly can be sometimes a little bit of bias worked in depending on what you look like or who you are, you know, and the crew that you're coming in to work with that day. So
I think all that plays a role.
So looking forward now, like how, like, obviously you said, you know, the fire service wasn't a path that you kind of felt like you were going to go down necessarily or had even thought about. So now that you're here, what kind of goals have you set for yourself, or how do you see your career in the future?
Okay. Initially coming in, of course, you just want to get your toes wet, figure out if this is for you, what paths do you want to go down. So my first year or two, that's exactly what I was doing. And then my third year, I started taking different classes, going, you know, finding out more about specific things, driving, hoses, you know, different things like that, what sparked my interest. And now at this point, I'm looking at this career as, of course, I feed my passion every day. I'm here. I enjoy myself. I love what we do. I also think being that I love this department, I wanted to go into a direction, and I wanted to be a representation of how the department looks from the inside out. So my end goal would be to hopefully climb up the ladder and go into more of an officer role, and, you know, take this department in a direction that I think as a whole we want it to go. Not based on me being a woman, not based on me being black, not based on me being gay. It's based on the fact that I understand where we can go, where we are, and where we should be, inside, on the inside. And I think the outside is a contributing factor because, of course, somebody on just walking down Broad Street sees someone's like me and like, hey, I know I can do it, but also because of the morals and values that I hold in the inside of me that I think are in line with where we want to go and where we are as a fire department, all of that encompassing in itself, I can pour that into my crew or anybody that I'm able to, you know, help. And I mean, I can do that now as a firefighter, of course, and I try to. With the younger guys come in or anybody I can encourage to come and join if they have that passion or have even thought about it, you know, I can do that now.
And, you know, you certainly mentioned a little bit about the effect that or your impression, you know, going into CPAT and seeing that Captain Potter's there, you know, another woman that, hey, I can do this job. How have you, you know, and we've talked a little bit about how you've, you know, your crew's impressions of you and things, but how has it been for you in terms of how you think the public views you, in terms of, you know, being on scene and interacting with the public? Is that another area that you feel like you can contribute, or that you maybe give people something they hadn't considered?
Oh yeah, all the time. You know, you pull up on scene and everybody's like, the fireman. You know, then I hop off and they're like, oh, it's a woman firefighter. So everybody wants to come over and meet the woman firefighter, or, you know, talk to me and stuff like that. And even on scene, sometimes it's situations where, just last week we ran a call and a guy only wanted to speak to a lady. You know, so sometimes situations like that is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you know, just being at a community event or something like that. You know, you have a bunch of kids out there, and it's always good to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think in the public eyes is great. Everybody is very warm and welcoming. They're always excited to see it.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking time to talk with me today about all of this. You know, you certainly sounds like your career is off to a great start, and we're happy to have you here. So look forward to following you more in the future to see where your career goes. And just thanks again for taking time to talk with me today.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.